1933 to 1938. 1. She was 11, and she stood before the picture window of her father's house and watched the figure of the traveler as he came into view from the road. Watched him walk, stooped from the pack on his back, then straighten, when she knew he could see the house before he could see the treetops. Watched him quicken his steps as though he had walked a long way for a long time, and what he sought was now as close as walking through a gate. And this was his sole intention. He stopped for a moment and squared himself before the entrance of the property, his eyes moving, his head lifting slowly, all with a kind of wonder, from the orchard grounds to the stone foundation, the balcony and high-framed windows, the slate tile roof. Then he lowered his head and stepped from the road to the dirt drive that skirted the long line of apple trees and pear trees and split off onto paving cobbles that bent like a silver river through the silver-rimmed grass and stopped at the foot of the stone front steps. From a distance he looked like a man. Closer now, she could see he was a boy in the clothes of a man. Clothes from a place where a man and the work he did were nothing like any man who worked and lived in Dardan. She remembered the photographs she had seen of people, to her eye, similarly dressed in the pages of the National Geographic magazines her father brought to her from Miss Cording's house. The woman who was 1/3 owner of the endless roughing mill handing Jozef Vinich a stack bound by a lavender ribbon and saying, "Take these for Hannah, poor girl, all alone up there on that mountain of yours." When Vinich and Asa Pound met with her over brandy to discuss the finances of the mill. The South American gauchos who rode their brown and piebald horses along the lowland pampas grass, mountains snow-capped in the distance. The colorful Mongol riders of the steppes who pressed forward, mounts short and large-headed across land some god had created for them alone to cross. And a people called the Lovari Roma, outcasts wandering in great caravans of vardos drawn by collared equine that followed paths among not mountains or grasslands, but the hinterlands of the towns and cities of Middle Europe. And yet, for all of these riders her imagination conjured, this boy, this young man, came alone and on foot, and looking as though the land he had left was land bereft of any horse, rider, or path. And that was why he had come. His boots were creased and scuffed and colorless from toe to shaft, the soles themselves looking as though they were sewn tight to their uppers by sinew known only to the cobbler who had fashioned them. The trousers he wore appeared so faded and thin, the material of which they were made seemed to carry as much dust as threads between each woof and warp.